Welcome to LaTour Retirement Talk. I'm your co-host, Tony Shore, and I'm here with Jim Margraf and Josh LaTour, our hosts at LaTour Asset Management. Jim and Josh, hope you guys are doing good today. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, we're doing great, Tony. How are you doing?
Oh, you know what? Crazy busy. Unbelievable. We've got about, 60 advisors in the office this week, and I've been meeting with different folks at Gradient Investments, doing some live shows and live streaming, and busy with things at home because my wife's still out of town. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, she's been out of town for 10 days, and that laundry doesn't fold itself, I learned. That's what I've learned from this whole I've learned from the whole experience. How have you been, Jim? What have you been up to?
Nothing out of the ordinary, really, for me. Just every day helping people.
Good.
I always count it a privilege when I can sit down with someone and I can help them get some peace of mind regarding their future finances. And I had the privilege to do that with some more of our, I would say, unusual circumstances that I came across this week, but I was able to kind of provide some clarity and some peace of mind for some people. And so that is always I count that as a privilege.
That's really good. With everything going on in the news and stuff, it's really good to have some experts like you guys in your corner to rely on so you don't have to stress and worry about the financial aspect of things. So, Josh, how's life as a father treating you?
You know what, Tony? I couldn't be happier. No, it's been great. He's a bundle of joy, honestly.
Good. I'm so glad to hear that. That's awesome. I bet he is. And your wife, how's she doing?
She's doing great. Yeah, she's adapted into being a mama pretty well. So we're really enjoying it.
Yeah, when you have a kid, nobody knows what they're in for going in, really. You might even think but usually you don't. But it's trial by fire, and you learn pretty quick, don't you?
Right. Yeah, and we're honestly blessed that he's a good sleeper.
That's great.
He's not very colicky. I mean, of course, any baby's going to have their times, but he does great, and he's pretty easy to work with. So. I know that there's some parents out there that would be shooting daggers at me for saying that, but we're happy about it.
Well, Josh, it's always good when the first one is an easy baby, because if the first one was like the second one, you wouldn't have any more.
Right. Yeah,
that's true. Oh,
at least that's the way it was for us. I mean,
the
first one was easy, and he was so easy and easy going even as a toddler.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, he was so easy that other parents would come up to us and ask us how we got him to behave the way we did. And, when you've only got one and you think, well, I'm really doing good at this. The second one came along. I have no idea what I was doing. The second one came along. It's that like, happens. Oh my word, what happened here?
Yeah, Josh, just wait until he's 4 and refuses to wear a coat outside in the middle of winter when it's snowing. And I mean, just demands, screams, bloody murder because nope, I'm not wearing a coat. They just decide things. It's just and it's just crazy. Like, especially at that age, those are the good years. They're so cute at that age and fun. But boy, when they start to make up their minds about things, it's pretty intense sometimes.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So we're talking about the great wealth transfer today. I'm interested. You guys said you wanted to talk about this. What is the great wealth transfer, and when am I getting mine is the question. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, Tony, you might be a part of this $84 trillion that's going to be transferring over time here. It's going from the baby boomer to the Gen X and then on to millennials as well. So
$84 trillion.
That's right.
Is being inherited by Gen X. Wow.
By Gen X and millennials. So it's kind of split between the two. So it's a big responsibility for these age groups. They're going to be inheriting a lot of money. Of course, that's spread out across the country, but still it's a large amount of money. And so we're kind of wanting to get into just what people need to be doing to prepare for that. Because I mean, there's some stats we're going to share today that talk about just how oftentimes people spend right through their inheritance, and they don't value it enough. And so we want to kind of dive into the weeds there and talk about how do we prepare properly for this great wealth transfer. We don't want to mess this up, and then we're rich one day and we're a pauper the next because we weren't paying attention, we weren't being smart about what we're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I just can't get over that number, that $84 trillion is expected to be inherited by baby boomers and Gen X, or from baby boomers.
Right.
It's going to be inherited by Gen X and millennials. I mean, I thought the national debt was bad. Like our debt is like at what, 30 some trillion dollars.
Yeah.
Yep. This is
over double.
Yeah. More than double that, quite a bit more than doubling. $84 trillion. That's hard to wrap your head around. I mean, that's real money even to you, Jim, right?
Yeah. I mean, I heard a lawyer say this one time, and I've adopted it and been saying it ever since. Where there's a will, I want to be in it.
I've never heard that one. Honestly, that's great. Instead of where there's a will, there's a way.
No, where there's a will, I want to be in it. No,
I'm unfortunately, steal that one.
Yeah, right. Go ahead. I stole it, so you might as well.
Yeah.
No, we look at this. You look at your own family situation. It's like, okay, so where's mine, right? But there are a lot of families that are inheriting a lot of funds, and so we need to prepare for this. And it's not all just a physical preparation. A lot of it has to do with the mental preparation. How do I need to think about what I'm doing with these funds? Because these are not funds that you worked for. If you're the one inheriting them, a previous generation worked for these.
Right.
So how do I think about all of this? It's a big change.
Yeah, and honestly, some of the statistics are a little bit scary when we look at what people do with inheritance.
Yeah.
A lot of times, I mean, there are studies that show that 70% of families that inherit wealth, by the second generation, it's gone. 70%. And by the third generation, up to 90% of it is going to be gone. And so, we want to change those statistics. That's kind of the goal. We want to make sure that we're preparing, and a lot of the reasons people are unprepared there. I mean, there's cultural divide between these generations. Yep. They think differently. They just do. They think and they act differently from one to the next. And we can paint the stark lines of difference between those generations. But regardless, we want to make sure we're preparing the next one for this great amount of wealth, and make sure that they're doing the right thing, because we want to hold on to what our parents have worked so hard for. And I think that a lot of times the issue with people just spending through their inheritance is that they never formed the habits that their parents did. They're just relying on this inheritance to change their life, and they're not doing anything to better themselves before they ever get there. So when you're working toward that goal, you're working to create your own net worth, putting in the work, then you're going to think differently. You're going to form the right habits. And then when you do inherit from the previous generation, you're going to have a lot more respect for those dollars, and you're not just going to spend through them because you've already formed the right habits. And I think that's what's important.
Yeah. Josh, as you're mentioning about the habits, I think that's a bigger deal than most any of us want to say it is, because if I'm in the habit of, or if I'm not in the habit of doing the work, like you said, I'm not in the habit of setting some money aside out of every paycheck. I'm not in the habit of spending less than what I make, and investing some from every paycheck or every month, investing some along the way. It's going to affect what I do with that inheritance in a great way. It's going to change that mentality, and you can see it. But the more preparation that we can do, and I think a big part of the preparation is the openness of one generation to talk to the next. We need to talk about what we've done, what it took to gather those funds, and it's, what do we want to see those funds accomplish, and be working with the next generation. So I'm going to pull a little bit from my family on this one. My grandfather, in his generation, they didn't talk about funds at all.
Right.
Frowned upon. I could completely frowned upon to talk about money. So my dad and my uncle, they kind of got to the point of when their parents were getting ready to pass, so they were completely blind. They had no idea what was or wasn't there. Now, I'm very thankful that for me, my dad looked at that, saw the disadvantage of it, and completely opened up. And so I'll go back even into my teen years. My dad was open about what he was doing. If he was going to try to invest something, if he was going to try to set something aside, he talked about it. He was in business for himself. He was making a business investment. He even talked about that. We talked about that around the kitchen table, and I got to see his perspective and learn from it from a young age and see that. And so I think the biggest thing is the openness and having that conversation with one generation to the next, and maybe even down to the grandkids, but having those conversations about what is coming and what to do with it.
Yeah, and I will say too that in a scenario like you're talking about, Jim, I think trust is going to be a key ingredient, and being able to have those open and honest conversations with your family. And unfortunately, there are a lot of families that trust just isn't there, and in some cases, rightfully so. Right. That's a sad situation. But if you're able to find a place of trust with your family members, with the next generation, older folks, be talking to your kids about this so that they don't make these mistakes that a lot of their other peers might be. We want to make sure that your children are doing the right thing when they inherit the funds from you. So we've talked on the show before about how important it is to make sure that your beneficiary forms and everything are correct and up to date. But what about your beneficiaries? Right. Are they prepared to actually inherit these funds? I think that's the next step. You are muted, Tony.
I think that's right. And I think back to your original comment about the generational differences, a lot of what you talked about, especially you there, Jim, when it comes to communicating about money to your kids and your grandkids, it's somewhat of a generational thing, maybe not intentional or trust-based. It's really with my grandfather, he lived to 101, but he never talked to anybody about money and would never talk about his finances. And that was part of the problem. And my dad was the same way. So trying to get those two to talk about it so it made sense for the next generation. So they worked so hard to build this up, and the family farm and the business and money. And it's just, unfortunately, so much more of it could have been preserved had they had better communication. So it's just critical to involve all parties, right?
It is so very critical. And I got to go back, and I got to say, one of the things I'm going to put a big shout out to my dad and his mentality on finances and things. He would talk about his mistakes as much as he talked about the pluses and the thing when things went right. And he talked about the mistakes and said, "Hey, listen, I made this mistake here. Don't do that. You're going to make plenty of mistakes on your own, but don't make the same ones I made. Learn from my mistakes. Don't make mine." And, I've taken a lesson from that. And I've been talking, my oldest son is 20. So I've been talking to him. These are the mistakes your great grandfather made. These are the mistakes your grandfather made. These are the mistakes your father's made. Don't make any of these. You got 3 generations to learn from here.
Yeah.
Go make your own. But here's a whole bunch, this already doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
So
good point.
I think learning from the previous generations, and that's kind of what this is really about, is learning from those that have come before us.
Right.
Mm-hmm. There are things that work. It doesn't matter what generation we're in. It's always beneficial to spend less than you make. It's always going to be beneficial to do that, right?
Wait, stop. Hold up. You're saying I can't spend more than I make?
You're not Congress.
Ooh, let me write that down. I don't know if that's going to work for me.
Right.
No, that's the problem. Yeah, Congress. Let's not even get started.
No.
Don't bring up Congress right now. They're a thorn in my side and a lot of people's side right now. They need to end this government shutdown we're in.
Yeah, they do.
Hopefully by the time this airs, it'll be done. But
that's the hope, right?
That'd be wonderful.
Fingers crossed, praying for it, everything, whatever I need to do. Let's do it. So a real pet peeve of mine, guys, and you're kind of alluding to this as well, is financial education. I saw my kids, they don't teach it in schools. I wish I had learned. I wish my parents had taught me how to be more responsible about money. They did not. I certainly didn't learn it in school. And now my 3 kids, when they're all out of high school now, grown out of the house, but just recently, one's still in college. Otherwise, the other 2 just graduated. But they had one personal finance class offered as an electable that they could take their junior or senior year of high school. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yep.
And to make it fun, they had somebody come in and talk about investing, and they did mock stock accounts to see how they would do, which is a lot of fun, and kids learn about investing from it. But that's about it. I mean, they're not learning real world stuff like you guys are talking about on the show, and especially this wealth transfer, which is going to create so much financial mistakes, and so many families are going to lose businesses and things because there wasn't communication, there wasn't education, right?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think teaching financial literacy and just kind of gradually explaining these financial these tips and tricks along the way, the things that they should be doing, and then the things that they should avoid as well. That's what's going to separate those that do well with this transfer and those that just end up blowing it. So we want to make sure that we're teaching the next generation. And honestly, for Gen Xers and for millennials, make sure you're paying attention to what your parents are telling you. I mean, maybe they don't know everything, but they've been through more than you have. They have some experience on their side. And if they have, built themselves a net worth, maybe it's worth listening to. Maybe they're worth listening to.
Sure. So what are some other tips you guys have for if you're on the inheritance side of this and you're going to inherit money, or if you're leaving a lot to kids or grandkids, what can they do to preserve that wealth?
Well, I think for starters is, as we were just talking about, is the education side.
Yeah.
If you don't have someone that is sitting down and being open with you and going through what they have done, get yourself some books. I would love to say that you could just follow the social media influencers for that talk about financial advice. And I'm sorry, but I've gone on and I've followed a few just for entertainment and value on social media. And I'm like, oh boy, this is so wrong. If you're going to follow this advice, you're going to get hurt. And, it better is to look at those who have done really well and have written a book about it. Look at and you could, if you have someone that, you say, hey, listen, this person they've created a multi-million-dollar or maybe $1 billion business, and they've written some books. Take some time, read some of these books. You may not be able to sit down with them and ask them questions, but you can at least get inside the mind of those who have done really well and see what they say.
Yeah.
And that's educate yourself if you're not being taught by the previous generation. So that is education is going to be, I'm going to say that's the elephant in the room here. If you take two people and one of them knows what to do, the end result, and one of them doesn't. The one who knows what to do, down the road, it's going to be a vastly different picture.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that is so true, and I think it's so important, and I'm glad you're emphasizing that. What else, Josh? What else can happen here?
Well, let's go through some critical steps in preparing for the wealth transfer, and we've already talked about some of it, but we want to start with defining our family goals.
Okay.
Make sure our documents are organized to minimize taxes, and it makes things a whole lot easier when you know where your documents are. That's that's just always helpful.
Yeah.
You want to educate your heirs. Make sure that they understand a little bit about what they're going to be inheriting. You may not know what dollar balances you're going to pass on because you don't know what your balances are going to be by the time you pass away, but you can at least give them an idea of what they might be inheriting, and let them meet your financial advisor. I think that is absolutely huge. Bring them into that conversation. Bring your heirs into that conversation with your advisor, because the thing is, a lot of times, I believe it's 70% of heirs switch advisors because they never established a relationship with their parents' advisor. And so bringing your kids into that conversation, it gives somebody that you trust, and it gives your kids somebody to trust as well. And so when they're inheriting these funds, they're not having to go find an advisor to, oh man, what do I do now? My parents passed away unexpectedly, and I've got this kind of financial mess, and I don't know what to do, and I don't have anybody to trust right now. Well, if you've already introduced them to your advisor and they've already been able to establish that relationship, that can help a whole lot. And your heirs are going to be going through some amount of grief as well. So your advisor could be the one that walks them through the financial portion and helps take that burden off of them.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think, like you said, organize the documents,
right?
Make sure you've educated your heirs. You talked about that. Update plans. You've got to do these things, right?
Yeah, you really do. And, when we're talking about, just getting things organized, it's many times it's not really that complicated to really just sit down and, collect things, because you don't have to do it all at once. But as the statements come in, collect them, get them written, everything written down as to where things are in a notebook, or if you want to keep a paper copy, or if you want to use some online storage. It's one of the things that we have for our clients is we have an online storage for documents. And if a parent wants to give their kid or their beneficiaries access to that, they can. And so that's a huge benefit. So the kids can actually see what's been happening with mom and dad's money.
Yeah.
That's a possibility as well.
I think that's great. What's that called? Your online?
It's our generational vault.
Yeah. That's what I thought. The generational vault, my wife and I use that. It's incredible. I mean, we even upload photos and recordings we want our kids to see after we pass, and they can have limited access if you don't want to give them access to everything right away. But you can actually have updated accounts on there. We look in there to see where our where our IRAs are at, right?
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think one of the uses for that generational vault as well, Tony, you mentioned recordings for your kids.
Yep.
And sometimes people are wondering, well, what do we do with some of the personal things that we have to pass on? Well, you can actually make a recording for your kids. Let's say you have maybe some antiques or something you want to pass on. You have some jewelry that maybe you want to go to your daughter, and you want a vehicle or some woodworking things to go to your son. And that's not something you really put in the trust or the will necessarily. Maybe you make a video for your kids that they can watch after you're gone, and they know what your wishes are. And so it can help simplify things. And I guess some people find it morbid, but at the same time, none of us are getting out of here alive. And so preparing for the inevitable, I think, is important, even though it may not always be the most fun thing to do.
I think that's huge.
Yeah. So, but having our documents organized and getting that all in place, it's, as financial advisors, a lot of times that's what we do when someone is in the process of becoming a client. We start to organize the finances and give everything a purpose. And, as we were talking earlier, we were talking about, well, what is your family's purpose? Right. So maybe this is a time when you start sitting down with the family and talking about your own family culture. What is your purpose? What is your family's vision? You see this in the ultra wealthy, right? They have a purpose as a family. They have the things that they're going to be donating to and things like that. But you can do this even on a small scale as a family.
Right. Yeah.
That's huge. Yeah. And I think it is important to incorporate the whole family. And, if you're the adult or the parent or the grandparent, you should be working with trusted financial professionals such as yourselves, and then involve your kids and the grandkids at some point. Once they reach a certain age, you can bring them in and make sure they get to know your financial advisor, so it can be a family thing and everybody can get on the same page.
Absolutely, Tony. I think you nailed it.
So is there anything else you guys want to talk about? We've got just about a minute left. Is there anything else you want to say to our listeners or cover before we go today?
Well, I think the thing that when we're looking at the transfer of this wealth, as we started out saying, the biggest thing is the communication. And, we're not just talking about the money all the time here, because we also need to talk about, what are the life lessons that we've learned along the way? What are some of the different skills that we've gathered as we've gone through life? And what can we teach and pass on to that next generation? Because there's nothing like the dark ages of having to learn everything fresh yourself.
Yeah.
So the more of those lessons that can be passed on to benefit the next generation, the better.
Yeah. I think that's huge. Now, before we go, let our listeners out there know how they can get a hold of you if they have questions or want to get a plan in place.
Absolutely, Tony. Well, listeners, just give us a call. Our phone number is 417-641-3497. And go check out our website. It's LaTourasset.com.
All right, and that does it for today's episode of LaTour Retirement Talk with our hosts, Jim Margraf and Josh LaTour.